Hello, Franklin Wepner here again, making a video, another one in the series of Chekhov, Gestalt, and Kabbalah. This particular video, I'm focusing on the exercises of Chekhov, and my basic position here is that the Chekhov exercises are basically Gestalt exercises, Gestalt therapy exercises. Either Chekhov or somebody who he learned with, or somewhere along the line, somebody went to the trouble of making these connections. Now chronologically it's kind of confusing for me personally, because I know that Chekhov came to the United States around 1940, and Gestalt therapy, Fritz Perls got to the United States around 1950, after the World War II. So exactly which came first, the chicken or the egg here, who got it from who, I'm not going to deal with that. But all I'm saying is that whoever got it from who, it's amazing how basically Chekhov's exercises are Gestalt therapy, and Gestalt therapy is what Chekhov is talking about. On the internet I was fortunate enough to find a description of 41 different exercises that apparently are the Michael Chekhov exercises. There was no particular source telling where this download came from, but it seems to be totally consistent with everything I know about Chekhov, especially every word is consistent with what he says in his 5-hour lecture series that I do know about. So I'm going to assume that this list of exercises is authentic. And I'm going to start off on one exercise of the 41. It's probably the most complicated one of the 41, but at the same time, if you understand this one, if we get the point of this one, then a lot of the others will seem like a piece of cake. They say, pretty easy stuff. So also very important about this exercise, it shows how much Michael Chekhov is drawing from a particular 15th century Neoplatonic, what they call Italian humanist philosopher or theologian by the name of Marsilio Ficino. Marsilio Ficino. Now, I have never heard about Marsilio Ficino myself, but I was lucky. I listened very carefully to what Chekhov said, and when he started citing Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo and Raphael as examples of what he was trying to say, so I said to myself, well, who do these painters study with? Where did they get their ideas from? And sure enough, that trail led me to Ficino. Especially useful to me is a book called Philosophies of Art and Beauty, Selected Readings in Aesthetics, by Albert Hofstadter and Richard Coombs. And they have, in that book, I was fortunate enough to find a nice 35-page excerpt from Ficino's commentary on Plato's Symposium. And that commentary Ficino calls De Amore. I think that's the Italian, maybe I'm wrong about the Italian pronunciation, but about love. And this, to me, is a very convincing case, makes a very convincing case for the fact that love is a huge factor in Michael Chekhov's system in that 5 hours of lectures series. He's talking about all kinds of love, and love in this, and love in that, and being friendly to this, and being friendly to that. Endless love. So what does it mean by love? Well, that's what these 35 pages are about, and I recommend everyone that's seriously interested in knowing what Michael Chekhov is talking about to go get it from the horse's mouth, read Marsilio's, Ficino's commentary on Plato's Symposium, and I'm going to deal with that right here to give you an idea what I'm talking about, how beautifully it fits. But before we get to Ficino, I want to start off, the trail is going to go from Chekhov's centering exercise, which I'll tell you, if you don't know about it, I'll just read it to you in a minute. And then I'm going to show you how that fits right in with Gestalt therapy. The same idea of centering. and then we're going to relate it to Ficino. And in that sequence, it's not going to be easy stuff. Even for me, it's a bit confusing. But once you get it, it's a nice, nifty little way of looking at things and tying Chekhov in with a whole bunch of other things that obviously his system relates to. Chekhov is not a simple guy. Some people criticize him, they say, oh, he's mystic. But it's not mysticism, it's just hard, solid philosophical understanding, clear ideas, and once you get them, then you're on solid ground. But if you don't get them, you're floating in some kind of a intellectual borscht, and that's your, if you want to do that, that's up to you. That's your choice. If you want to be foggy and ignorant, that's up to you. But if you want to know what's going on, the arrow points towards, in my opinion, points towards Marsilio, Ficino, and Gestalt therapy. So here we go. Chekhov exercise called center in chest. Okay? Now, I am the world's, probably one of the world's least accomplished physical theater performers, although I once spent a few years trudging around New York City, getting involved in these physical theater workshops back in the 1975 to 1980. So, but I'm just going to describe it. Don't look at me. If you want to see people doing these exercises, physical exercises, very, very slick. Just open to about 10 different studios on the internet of Chekhov, and you'll see people lined up in rows, you know, everyone doing the same thing, like an army camp, and that's exactly what Michael Chekhov does not want, of course. That's why he called his exercises psychophysical exercises, and in the lecture he makes a point that the body is important, but the main thing is that the body should be serving to the mind, the soul, and that's exactly what's not going on in a lot of these studios. But anyway, okay. So here we go. Center in chest exercise. Imagine a center in chest. Through it flows the impulses for all movement. So I'm supposed to imagine a center here, okay? Center is a source of interactivity and power in the body. Okay, interactivity, all right? We'll get into what these words mean. Let sensations, there's a key word, this $1 million Michael Chekhov word, sensation, remember, is another way of talking about what Gestalt therapy, they call a Gestalt, a center of consciousness. Remember the word sensation, sense means sensory, and sense also means the sense of something, an idea. So it has an idea content and it has sensation involved. So let sensations of strength, harmony, and well-being penetrate the whole body, no blockages. Let energy flow freely. Joints are designed to give legs freedom. Movement of arms and legs originates in the center. Make series of movements, lift arms, stretch them, walk, sit down, etc. Okay, so in other words, imagining a center here, and if I just imagine a center, somehow or other this movement starts there, and when it gets to my arm, the arm keeps, and then the center keeps moving it out there, or the center moves it towards you, or the center moves it away. Okay, somehow that's my center, okay? All right. And let power precede the movement, send out all impulse, then complete it. Center is few inches in front, let body follow the center. Okay, let power flow and radiate beyond the boundaries of the body into space around you. Power must also follow. Something's missing there. All right, goals. Smooth, graceful, artistic movement, ideal body type, overcome self-consciousness, experience strong feelings of stage presence. Okay, that's the exercise. You're supposed to have some kind of a center, and that somehow is the center of your consciousness, and your body is in response to that. All right? Now let's, second step. I'm going to look at how to Gestalt therapy uses the same idea. And again, remember I said I'm going to get to Ficino afterwards. So let's take dreamwork, Gestalt therapy dreamwork, and I guess if you don't know what that is, I have to take just a second here and review the basic process of Gestalt therapy dreamwork. Since this, by the way, is the model for just about everything Michael Chekhov is doing here, except, again, whether Chekhov himself put it together or somebody else put it together, I don't know, but all I know is that these exercises that Chekhov telling you to do are the same things that you do in Gestalt therapy, except somebody took the Gestalt therapy process and did a micro-analysis of every single step of that Gestalt process and made an exercise out of each step. So it's confusing because these exercises are all, you have 41 exercises, it's like 41 blind men looking at an elephant. And there's no elephant here. Then you listen to his 5 hours of lectures and there's the elephant, but you don't know what to make of the elephant because it's not connected to the exercises. Well, that's your problem. I'm telling you how I figure it out, and if you can accept my analysis, or you can go find your own analysis. Right, so again now, starting Gestalt therapy, which I maintain is the paradigm case here of the whole system. So let's say you have a dream, and I'm using the same old dream I've been using for 10 other videos already. I dream that there's a cloud and there's a tree, okay? And that's the whole dream. And in the Gestalt dreamwork technique, first step you do is you tell the dream in the present tense. I see a cloud, I see a tree. And the second step is you act, identify with each of the images. So I say, I am this tree, and I am going up to the sky, and then I play the cloud, and I am this cloud, and I'm floating here and floating there, floating there. Okay, so I have 2 different physical forms already. PGs, right? Tree and cloud. Okay. Now, next thing you do in Gestalt therapy is you want to set up dialogues, conversations between the cloud and the tree, and also between every other dream image, every other element of that dream. For example, the ground talking to the sun, or a worm on the tree talking to a leaf. Anything that you find is in that dream is relevant, interesting to you. You can set up identify with that, set up another dialogue. And associations are endless, and ideally, and usually what happens is the associations lead you to personal stuff, dealing with usually parents and, wife, kids, and all that stuff. God, whoever you're into. And these dialogues usually lead to an impasse. A place where one side wants this and the other side wants that. And you get stuck. And then when you get stuck, either you do it yourself or the director tells you, close your eyes, go inside, and forget about those 2 sides and find a new idea in the void. And you go into the fertile void, they call it, or the halal panui, in Hebrew, halal is empty space. Halal is space, and panui is cleared out space, the empty space, the fertile void. You go in there, and you find some new image. Okay, I find an image of a grasshopper. And that grasshopper had nothing to do with the tree, really, and nothing to do with the cloud, but there he is. So that new image of the grasshopper, if I start playing with that image and building up a whole new gestalt, a whole new world of associations, consciousness radiating out from now I'm identifying with the grasshopper, and that grasshopper somehow included elements of the tree and the cloud, although it might not be, it's usually not obvious how the 2 opposites somehow came together into this new element, which is now we call a synthesis. So you notice we have a whole dialectical process going on. We have one dream, which in my dreamwork process, I factored into 2 opposite, or 20 million different opposites, antitheses, opposite elements that having dialogues and getting to impasses. And then finally, these opposites come together into a higher level of integration. All right? So we have thesis, antithesis, synthesis. Philosophically speaking, they call it identity, difference, and then identity in difference. If you're religious, you say God, the world, God in the world, or the world in God. The one going to the many, and then going to the one in the many, or the many in the one. All right, that's the dialectical process of Gestalt therapy, and that is hidden in Michael Chekhov, although it underlies every single thing that's going on here. He takes that underlying process, and I don't know really whether he knew about the Gestalt process or not, but he basically ignores a lot of the depth of it and gives you kind of kind of a watered down, simplified Gestalt therapy process, which is fine for most of the simple people that are using it. Most actors don't know and don't want to know about this other stuff. And if you're one of them, so it's time to push delete, bye-bye. But if you're not, then stick around. Okay, so that is what I wanted to say about Gestalt therapy. Now the next step is, how does that tie in with Ficino? Because Ficino is going to give us an overall philosophical, religious context. Basically, Ficino is going to give us the Zohar Kabbalah with Renaissance terminology. So let's just spell out some of the basic parallels there. Ficino is going to talk about there's a point, a center, which is God, and then there are four circles. And the four circles are the different levels of reality. God is like the purest idea. The next level is pure ideas in the mind of God, but they're not yet created in the world. The third level is pure ideas in the world, and the fourth level is the world, foggy ideas, imperfect ideas in the world. Okay, those four levels. They have different names and different systems, and so the Ficino system which is the one that which Michael CHEKHOV is buying into. The levels are the point is God. The second level is the angelic mind. This is the level of pure ideas, but they're not yet created. And the third level is the soul. And the fourth level is nature for Ficino. And then we get to matter. Matter is this everyday world here. And the other levels are pure ideas. Created or not so pure, but they're ideas. All right, by the way, the Zohar parallel there is Atzilut, which is, well, first there's God, and then there's Atzilut, then there's Bria. Atzilut means aristocracy, the highest level. Then there's the Olam Bria, the world of creation. Then there's Olam Yitzirah, the world of formation, which is the one of souls. And Olam Asiyah, the world of making, and that's the one of what Ficino calls nature. And then comes matter, which is the level of tarnished, dead shells that we live in. Shadows, illusions, games that we're stuck in. The matrix. Okay, so now, what about the center? I wanted to tie it in with the center before I get too lost here, okay? So that's where I'm going to turn to, where is it? Here it is. I'm going to turn to a section of Ficino's commentary on Plato's Symposium. And this particular section here, by the way, it's translated by, I guess I should give credit to this is from this book. I told you, Hofstadter and Richard Kuhn's Philosophies of Arts and Beauty. And this particular chapter was translated by somebody named Sears Reynolds Jane. Whoever that is, Sears Reynolds Jane. His translation. All right. And this particular section is called Beauty is the Radiance of the Divine Goodness, and God is the center of four circles. Well, I just told you about four circles. God is the center. All right. So this, I don't want to take the time of reading the whole chapter, but I have to summarize it and I'll read a little bit of it. So the main idea is there's a center. And from this center coming out rays in all directions. And each of those rays or lines also has a center. And this center on each of those lines is given by God a quality called identity. Identity. That sounds complicated, but we've heard the word identity just now a couple times. And when I do Gestalt therapy, I identify with each image. I become the image. It's the same idea here. So look at the Gestalt process to just get our bearings here. It becomes very simple. When I project, or when I create this image, or dream this image of a cloud or a tree, there's a line going to the cloud. There's a line going to the tree. No, I got it backwards. There's a line going to the tree. There's a line going to the cloud. And when I play act that tree and say, I am this tree, I am identifying. I found that point on that line that came out from the center I started with at the very beginning of my dreamwork session. I'm finding that point and I'm identifying. And I do the same thing with the cloud. I find follow that line, that ray of consciousness out, and this is exactly the radiation exercise that Chekhov is talking about. And I get to the cloud, and then I identify with the cloud. And the moment I identify with the cloud, I have a center. I am the cloud. I have a new center. And then I start talking about my life as a cloud, my existence as I have what's called, Michael Chekhov calls my I consciousness. I have an I consciousness. I identify with that particular image, and I can identify with the tree. I can identify with the worm in the wood, and I can identify with a particular leaf. There's no end to how many identifications, how many I consciousnesses I can find, all coming out with lines, with rays from that original point where I started from when I started my dreamwork session. Okay. Now I'll just okay. The next point. I want to read this part here. Take a little patience. Just concentrate. See if you can get the point here. I'll come back and summarize it. So God, the center of everything, who is the simplest unity and the purest actuality, is infused into everything. Not only because He is present to the whole, but also because He endowed everything He created with some particular function or power, completely simple and distinctive, which is called the identity of that thing. The identity of that thing. In other words, God endows with each thing this ability to have that simple center that He has, that He is. All right? I'll finish the sentence again. He created with some particular function or power, completely simple and distinctive, which is called the identity of that thing, and from which and to which, as from and to its own center, which is God, the rest of the parts and powers hang. It is certainly fitting that, now here's the key sentence. Our next project here is to understand this one. It is certainly fitting that these things, as soon as they have been created, should gather around their own center. I say it again, should gather around their own center. This is what Plato calls collection, Platonic collection. Gather around their own center, this identity of their own, before they turn to their Creator, so that through their own center they may cling, they may cling to the center of everything. Okay, so the crucial element is here that each time you identify, then you begin to, with an image, to identify with the cloud. Then I start gathering around myself a whole new world of awarenesses. All right? Now, at the same time, in relationship to that original one point where I started out before I started projecting all these things, every one of let's say I did 100 projections in my dreamwork session that went on 10 hours, say, those 100 points, those 100 identification points, are also gathering around that original point. So there's a gathering around, and there's a gathering around, and there's different levels of collecting, until so much stuff is collected, that the awareness energy is collected, that a person makes a breakthrough into this moment of enlightenment, or that's what Chekhov calls a sensation, a strong Gestalt, explosion into authentic emotion. So watch how this works in Gestalt therapy, and you'll see exactly the parallel here to Chekhov. In Gestalt therapy, remember you start off with you start off with a tree and a cloud, okay? You have a dialogue between the tree and the cloud. Get to an impasse, go into the void, find a new idea. That new idea which encompasses these other two, the tree and the cloud have to die, death of ego, negation of negations, they have to die, so that the new idea can be born. And the new idea, remember, is identity and difference. It includes the two opposites in a higher integration. And that new idea is 1 millimeter or 1 million miles, however you want to think about it, closer to the final integration, when everything will come back to that first point at the end that you started out from. So the model here is kind of a motion that comes out from God and comes back to God. It's like a magnet pulling everything. First of all, God creates everything, and then there's a magnet pulling everything back to God. All right? And the magnet pulling everything back to God is, guess what? Love. That's what we call love. Of course, other philosophers have different labels. Like Aristotle, from which most of the stuff comes from here, we call it the final cause. The final cause is like the magnet that pulls everything. In Gestalt therapy, they call it Fritz Perls says, identify with the coming solution. Identify with the emerging existential message of the dream that will come when you finish 3 hours or so working on the dream, and you look back and the director asks you, well, what did you learn today? And you say, well, I learned that it's more important to be this way instead of that way. And that's the word, the message. And that word that is a higher level idea, which brings you one step back closer to God, and one step less fragmented than you were at the beginning of the session. Okay, so that's the Gestalt therapy model. And that's exactly what CHEKHOV is talking about when he says it talks about love. Love is everything, everyone and everything in the process should be immersed in this being pulled by the same magnet towards each other and towards the final cause, and surrender to that higher force, that higher energy, and letting the other opposites that you come and the struggles along the way die, so that you can be reborn, as they say spiritually, in that higher motion. And if you're a Jesus freak, then it means you're reborn somehow with Jesus. And if you're a Moses freak, then you're reborn with Moses. Or Kabbalah, you're reborn as Metatron, the highest angel in Judaism. Whatever your trip is, you know. But the idea of death and rebirth, being reborn and following the river, whatever metaphor. So here it is right here. And love, so from that, Michael CHEKHOV, love is that highest force. And the Zohar, by the way, you could think of it as the Shekhinah, the indwelling presence of God, which has two aspects. There's the Metatron, which is the active part, God projecting out, and then there's Avir, the ether that surrounds. There's Adam and Eve, and the relationship between the two of them, and that's my contact boundary. Every time I'm aware of something, I as Adam, or me as Metatron, or the Shekhinah project out a ray, and I encounter the other side of myself, the other aspect of the Shekhinah, and they have create a moment of reality, a moment of contact there. All these systems, they're all basically using similar metaphors, and if you want to take the trouble to clarify that for yourself, then you'll save yourself a lot of confusion. But if you prefer your confusion, you can stay with your confusion. No, that's up to you. It's not that difficult to put it together. Maybe if you play this video back 20 times, you might get it from me. I don't know. You might have to do some more homework. Okay, so going back to this, I'll just repeat what he says here, just to solidify a little bit. So God, the center of everything, who is the simplest unity and the purest actuality, is infused into everything, not only because he is present to the whole, but also because he endowed everything. He created with some particular function of power, completely simple and distinctive, which is called the identity of that thing. So that's it. The ability we have to identify with any particular thing, you know, just like they say in Taoism, if you want to play the branch, first become the branch. This is our Jewish version of that, which is called the identity. Well, this is actually a Christian version of that here in CHEKHOV, which is called the identity of that thing, and from which, and to which, as from to its own center, which is God, the rest of the parts and powers hang. It is certainly fitting that these things, as soon as they have been created, should gather around their own center. And that's what we're doing here. We're reoning projections, gathering around the center, this identity of their own, before they turn to their creator. So that first I solidify my identification with the cloud and the tree, and then ride on those identifications towards the next step of integration. And this is exactly what Michael Chekhov is talking about when he says that every actor has built into himself this need for a transformation deep in his soul, whether you know it or not. And this is the transformation, which traditionally in Christian theology was called a translation. He calls it a transformation. And you're going from up the ladder here. You're going from the different levels, from matter to nature to form to image, what is it, angelic mind, more and more pure ideas. Okay? And when you get to that level of angelic mind, or what the Kabbalists call Bria, world of creation, the third level up, then you have access to these pure ideas. And if you're a performer now working on your score, performing your score, which you've rehearsed, prepared, so then if you're able to be free to move up and down the ladder, Jacob's ladder here, in these different worlds, then you are able to constantly shuttle back and forth and get new ideas, here and now, improvisation ideas, to keep that score alive. So that's the basis of this kind of theater, is here and now improvisation, pulling those ideas out of the void, trusting your, what he calls your subconscious, or whatever you want to call it, and then your ability to illuminate that dead form, the score that you have there prepared, and each time to create, keep it new, because you're always getting new ideas. That's called live form. And by the way, if you look in a major example in the artistic world of the same process we're talking about here, is the art of Da Vinci. Da Vinci apparently, I'm not an art historian, but I could just look at the Mona Lisa and you see exactly the process here, which today they call live form. Because how did he paint the Mona Lisa? It's not because he didn't have the ability to paint a tree, clearly, but he painted this woman and he painted the background. Everything is like impressionism. Everything's kind of like through a crappy lens, vague. And the vagueness is exactly the point here. Because the message here is that the one and the many, that all of these particular objects in that picture, there are many of them, are immersed in the oneness of this foggy oneness here, and the one in the many is the fog, the image seen through a foggy filter, and that's what they call beauty in this system, and that's what Chekhov is trying to get actors to do, to be beautiful in the sense that you have this ability to do the one in the many, identity and difference, because the identity and difference is what beauty means for FICINO. And it's what beauty means for Chekhov. When he tells you to go around, look around the world and look at beautiful forms, he's telling you to look at forms that have this classical ability where you have a lot of separate parts, but they're somehow very well integrated organically. And that organic idea is more like Aristotle than it is than for Plato. But anyway, usually by the 15th century, Aristotle and Plato are so mixed up, it's hard to tell them apart anymore. Okay, I want to tie this in a little bit with a few other exercises here. Since now we have established this theoretical context, we have more hardware to use here. If we look at the exercises in the beginning, under the heading the actor's body, we have molding, we have floating, flying, radiating, form, 1 and 2, and then beauty. I told you about beauty. But I have a basic problem with this source that I got the exercises from. I'm not sure if it's whether to blame Chekhov or whether to blame the source that put this stuff on the web. But when we talk about, say, the radiating exercise, he says radiate out energy. Now, in the context we just established of that beauty is the one and the many, and the idea of dialogue, and the new idea coming out of the opposites, you know. It's basically a dialectical model, thesis, antithesis, synthesis. And when you talk about radiating an array out into nowhere, it's just a thesis without any antithesis. So there's something missing there. You know? And that's why I found at the beginning, I found it hard to relate to that. Here I am trying to radiate out, but radiate out where? To what? If you read the fine print here with these exercises, you see the missing element, but the trouble, instead of emphasizing it, they minimize it. Okay? Water, floating, take floating, okay? He says here, imagine air as a surface of water, which supports you and over which your movements slightly skim. Right away, you have yourself relating to water. There it is. You have the relationship. You have a ray coming out, and which is in the Kabbalah, the chokhmah, the idea comes out from the mind, and avir, the receiver, the receptive part, receives it. Adam projects to Eve. In Gestalt therapy, they say contact boundary. I'm aware of something. And I'm aware, and when the moment I have an awareness, there's a boundary there in the middle that's created, and that's reality for me. This is a phenomenological approach here to reality. It's called inductive logic, by the way, rather than deductive logic, but that's a whole thing. I don't want to get into that right now. But the implication is there's always some focus. And without the focus, there's no contact boundary. You just have what they call in Gestalt therapy confluence, sameness. And in working with somebody, a lot of times you want to, if a person doesn't have good contact with other people or with his own body or with his imagination, you want to, a person is stuck in a state of sameness. You know, for example, if you look at this session that I just did with awareness work with a person named Ben Sion Lehrer, every time I ask him, what are you aware of? The light of God. What are you aware of now? The light of God. What are you aware of now? The light of God. What are you aware of inside? The light of God. It's like this ray that's radiating out to God or something. But there's no receiver. He's passing the ball each time, but nobody catches it. So there's an example of confluence. Of course, I was very happy to see that by the end of the session, he got some contact. Okay, there was some reality established there. Although it was very difficult working with him. So this exercise here about radiating, is like, you know, radiate out the light of God, but without radiating it to some particular thing like water or air. You know, when you're folding the air, okay, so there's me in relationship to the air. I'm Adam, and the air is Eve, and I'm Chokhmah, the air is Bina. What is Chekhov's way of talking about it? Awareness, I guess. Well, he's calling it molding. Okay, molding. So the molding is the contact boundary. All right. So it's important that in this work with awareness and so let's say you're working on floating or flying or something. Now, if you just floating around, I could just say, oh, I'm floating. It's wonderful to float. I'm wonderful, I'm floating. It's what's called abstract. It's not concrete. You have an idea about floating, but it's not in a place. You know, in the Kabbalah they say hamakom, the place. The place is a name for God. You find that also in Aristotle. True local motion, he calls it. To be totally involved in a particular situation is reality, or God, or whatever you want to call it. And to be just no place is not reality. It's not a religious state. It's the absence of a religious state. Okay, so the way to get to the relation, say the water thing, okay? Let's say, if you do the Gestalt exercise, the way to save yourself from this sloppy language here, in my opinion, of course, there are people that, you know, all over the world, people are lined up 10 in a row doing Gestalt, doing Michael CHEKHOV physical exercises, enjoying being, oh, I'm floating, I'm so wonderful, I'm floating. But they're not connected to anything except this guru that's telling them what to do, you know, and they're a bunch of sheep. And I don't believe in sheep and gurus. I believe in reality. As they say, if you don't deal with the reality will deal with you. So how do you deal with this exercise about floating? You simply talk to the water. Set it up as a dialogue, like in Gestalt therapy, like the tree and the cloud. Okay, here, I'll do it right now. Okay, it's no big deal. Okay, I am in the water, and I'm floating, I'm splashing around. Splash, 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 splash. So what does the water say? The water says, hey, buddy, watch out. Hey, you're ruffling my water here. Watch out. And I say to the water, hey, I want to splash. Hey, I don't care about you, I want to splash. And the water says, huh? Okay, you want to mess me up? Okay, I'm going to make a storm. And then I'm in the water, and oh my God, what's going on here? Okay, so now I have that PG in my mind. I have this little mini Gestalt session I just did. So now, if I do my water, I have an initial PG splashing around. And I have a final PG trying to survive in a storm. Okay, and my CHEKHOV says, now you start with the initial one, take the final one, and find the transitions to get to that. Well, I just did it in front of your nose, so now I'll do it, and I'll imagine the PG. The PG is the dialogue I just invented, okay? So, and I go down to the bottom of the water. Okay, so that was my floating exercise, concrete, not just an abstract. Guru says, do it. You know, not that kind of thing. All right? And the same thing with all these exercises here. The other exercises, once you get beyond the section where it says the actress body here, most of the other exercises are very clear whether it's a Gestalt dialogue involved or it's awareness thing involved, or the idea of beauty as the one and the many, identity and difference. Those basic principles are right there throughout the 41 exercises. But the first section is the one I had the problem with, because there, the way these things are presented is too abstract. There's no otherness to relate to, and without an otherness to relate to, you just end up being unreal. It's a dance class, you know? Everyone wants to look beautiful and get the gig, but there's no reality happening there. And those are you end up with a mob. You end up with a mob. Because then the one that doesn't want to get into the system, you know, oh, you're spoiling our beautiful workshop, get out of here. I know, I've been there. I want to get to the thing about fairy tales, and that's a big one. But I'll get to it in the next tape. But right now, let's focus on where it says here, image workout. This is image workout is in the second section of imagination, incorporation of images, and concentration. letter E here for me, image workout. Okay, and then incorporation. But by the way, incorporation, you know, to identify, we just did that already. You see an image and then you become the image. You know, I'm this cloud, da da da. So that if you start off with an image in your imagination, then the identification will lead you right into the incorporation, the body of the character. That's what he says. Read the play, let your imagination go bananas and see a character out there, and just put your body on that image. That's just the same thing you do in Gestalt therapy when you have a imaginary conversation with a cloud and a tree. It's the same, exactly the same thing. All right. And here we have this collection of techniques called Image Workshop. You'll see a whole bunch of things that are all tied together here. Start with some impersonal event. So, well, I demonstrated with a dream image, but you could do it with anything. You know, I'm looking at a clock, so I see the clock over there. All right, so there's my image. See what it conjures up. I'm looking at the image and I'm imagining the hand going around real fast. All right, that's what it conjured up just now. And so it became concrete. I have this image of not just this clock, but a particular weird clock. All right, wait until it begins to move. I already did that, it moved. And it began to speak. It said, that's what it said. That's what my clock said. It has an independent life. I could begin asking questions. Okay, that's the same business in Gestalt therapy. Hello, clock. How are you today? Clock says, oh, I'm sitting here watching you make a fool of yourself as usual. And I'm red, and I have a big white face here with a big nose and a big black nose. And ha ha ha, Webner. You don't know what you're talking about. And I say to the clock, well, I bet I do. I've been reading lots of Ficino. I am all wired up for this occasion. Oh, there? What the heck with you? All right, I have a relationship with the clock. Interpretations. See, I'm collaborating with my image, right? Learn to penetrate through the... I did it by identity. See, this is what Breslau says. You need to find the inner idea in everything. I just found the inner idea in the clock by identifying on the clock. Very simple. Can't get any more interior than that. All right. Your images can never have secrets from you. Why? Because they're yourself. You're all projections, right? They often reveal to you feelings, emotions, and desires of which you were not aware. Okay, there it was. Clock telling me I'm making a fool of myself, and I suddenly defended myself, and I realized, boy, I'm strong, I know what I'm doing. Right? Okay? I know what I'm doing. I'm an authority on CHEKHOV, right? Right? See, I just realized how strong I am. That's how much an authority I am. All right? So it taught me something about who I am. Maybe I'm strong enough to go to New York and be ahead in Broadway, coaching actors, because I understand CHEKHOV from the inside out. That's how strong I am. Clock. All right. Watch the images as long to become affected. See, it affected me. All right, made me arrogant. Watching it transform. I'm watching that clock shrink down now. Clock, you realize how big I am and how tiny you are in comparison. Okay, so you see, there it is. Gestalt. What? With fancy labels here. All right. Another important thing that I discovered the other day is the interesting thing about this bodywork stuff and working with projections is you don't need a body at all. You don't need a body at all. The important thing is that there be some focus, a medium on which you project these ideas and these images. So I did a little improv the other day. I want to share this with you. I think it was very nice. I imagine a character, I look out there and I imagine this character out of nowhere. I just imagine this kind of a wiry kind of character. But and I said to myself, now if I want to put a quality, remember the qualities thing? You want to give it a certain emotional motive, sensation or quality, some kind of an inner idea, so it's coming from it's not just an external form. Now I could just do that for a while, you know, like Michael Chekhov said, discover my here and now emotional quality that goes with it. Oh boy, I'm having a great time today, showing off my wisdom, I'm so smart. All right, I could do that, and it's a body exercise, and that's Meyerhold, I guess, working from the body, getting associations from the body. But there's something else I could do. Because I have on the internet about 50 to 60 hours of me working on my own dreams, I could take any one of those dream work essences or sensations that I discovered and plug it right into this, this character. Right? For example, if you look at my video called The Room, which is one of my ones I like the most, I'm taking this picture by Chagall called The Birthday, and I treated it as though I dreamed it. I did a dream work session. So I took each of the elements of the dream, the floor, the walls, you know, the man and the woman, and the air. I did a Gestalt identification exercise. For example, I took the floor the other day when I did that, and the floor in that image, for some reason or other, I had this I thought of that bright red floor as kind of a real raunchy floor, and when I made the video, I put in this kind of rock or funky music. I'm grooving on the floor, and I got all kind of energy, kind of like a, you know, Harlem, black people in kind of a jazzy kind of thing. In the floor, and I got lots of energy, and don't remember, I got the power, and I can drive you crazy, and I got power, and I'm grooving, and I'm grooving. So now if I put that essence, that sensation, that Gestalt, that inner life, that inner objective, into my new form, which is this way. Hey, I'm not blue, I'm cool, man. Hey, I'm like the floor. Hey, I'm red. Hey. See, I put that. Doesn't matter where you get the essence from. The important thing is that it comes out of you by doing something like real, like this process of working with projections that I do in Gestalt therapy. And it doesn't have to come out of the body. You can, in other words, you can take that Michael Chekhov idea of projecting a character that you get from looking at the script for 5 minutes, and then you can take an essence from almost anything and plug it in there as the psychology of that character, as a quality. And I could let that floor be for one scene of my character. And I could take it different from that same video. Let's see, I could take the one about the, what other one could I take? On the walls. On the walls. I have no accent. I'm the wall, and I'm just very, I don't even have any resonance, and I'm just here, and I'm just the stable wall of the house, and nothing happens, and I just, that's my personality, and I go on like this forever, being the wall of this house, and I have such a difficult time dealing with that floor. Sometimes that floor drives me nuts, but otherwise, most of the time, I just ignore you, floor, I ignore you. Okay, there I have a dialogue between two opposite essences. So I could put that into my character. Let's say my text is to be or not to be. Hey, to be or not to be. That is the, to be or not to be. It is that, to be or not to be. To be or not to be. That's the question, man. Okay, so you see, I just flip back and forth between two PGs. I didn't have to do the PGs. I could even In this case I did, I put the body in there. But there I took stuff that I just got from some other personal work and I put it right in there as the qualities. So what I got from Chekhov now, what's new to me, what's very helpful is the idea of just reading the play and basically treating the play as though I just dreamed it and simply projecting an image of me as the guy in the dream, being the character, the character. So basically all he's saying is take the play and treat it as though you dreamed it and do a Gestalt dreamwork session on it. Except he doesn't say that. he says everything but that, so that unless you know better what he's talking about, it could be very confusing. But once you, if you know a little bit about the basic Gestalt process, then you see that his technique is so much just a factoring of the Gestalt process into every tiny little component of it, and making that a separate exercise. And that's the exercises section, the 41 exercises basically. But that's not all there is. There's a lot more. You know, when you listen to the 5 hours, and you can relate that to FICINO's theology here, then you can get a lot more from it. And I want to pick that up in the next tape. Go on, continue with some of that. Okay, I think I must be coming close to the end of the tape this time. So the way I feel now, I'll probably want to start with that fairy tale exercise and tie that in also in with Gestalt therapy, because basically when you do a Gestalt therapy session, you're just creating a fairy tale, a personal myth. A personal myth is a Gestalt session and is a fairy tale. And that's it. And once you know that, then you can work with a whole Gestalt therapy dreamwork session and put it right there into the character, or make a character out of that, which is what I've been doing for many years. Except I didn't have Chekhov's vocabulary to pin it down to. So the trouble is people usually don't know what I'm talking about. But now that I can say, oh, it's Chekhov, instead of saying it's Webner, it's Chekhov. And everybody thinks I'm fine, now that I'm not original. All right. Okay, bye-bye.